This is May 2015, standard level, paper 1, time zone 1, question 4. And this is all about functions and using graphs. You're given a function, instead of being given it algebraically, given it represented visually as a graph. Part A, find f inverse of -1. Now, f inverse, f minus 1, this is not the differential, it's not f dashed. F inverse means the opposite function to f. So if f, you can see here, for example, f takes the number, if you start with the number 1, what f does is it turns the number 1 into about 1.5. Or it takes the number 0. Oh, let's do one that's got a whole number answer so it's a bit clearer. F takes the number -1 and turns it into the number 2. F inverse is doing the opposite. F inverse starts with the number 2 and turns it back into -1. Or it starts with the number 1.5 and turns it back into 1. So this question is, what is f inverse of -1? So I'm getting the answer, -1, out as my output of f, there. Which means the input to f that would give me the answer 1 is 5. So part A, f inverse of -1 is equal to 5. Okay, part B, I'm doing f of -1. That means we're going to do the function f twice. Now, usually when we're thinking about composite functions, we have to think about the order. And the order is start with x, the number, and you work backwards through. You do f first and then f. In this case, it doesn't matter because it's f both times. If it was f of g of x, if it was this, then we'd have to do g first. You always start from the -1, and we would do g first. But in this case, that's not an issue, because we've got f. We've only got f and we're doing it twice. So we're going to start with -1. So this time we're not doing f inverse, so we're starting on the x-axis, not the y-axis. F of -1 gives me the answer 2. I'm going to write that down. F of -1 gives me the answer 2. We want to do f of -1, so that means I'm doing f of -1, so f of 2. So start with 2, and that gives me the answer 1. So if I do f twice, start with the number -1, I get the answer 1. Okay, and then lastly, on the same diagram, part C, sketch the graph of y is equal to f of -x. You need to remember, that means that we're going to switch all the x values with the negative x values. Switch x and negative x. So they're going to swap over, which is essentially a reflection horizontally in the y-axis. So everything's moving this way because we're swapping the x values, the x-axis, along here. Run our colours. So, along here. So when you're doing this, they're looking for a few key things. They're looking that your answer sort of crosses in the same sort of places. So it should cross here, because it's been reflected in the y-axis, should cross at the same place. The y-intercept, so that's the y-intercept, is just below the 2. The x-intercept should be over here, just like it is there. And considering we've already looked at some of these points, we should probably make sure it goes through those points. When you reflect it, those points end up, I'll just change colour now. Those points end up here, so I've got to go through these green points there, there. This one ends up here, there, through the x-axis, and then down to the bottom, under the 5, and let's finish here on the 6. I suppose I'm supposed to finish here. Now you needn't sketch all of these points in order to be able to get full marks, get both marks on this question. But they're looking for 2 or 3 out of those in order to get both marks. The intercepts are the most important ones. You'll be penalised if you don't go through the intercepts, just below 2, and somewhere between -3 and 4. But you'll also be expected to have the same basic shape and to go through maybe 1 or 2 of the points that they've identified in the question.